exposed. Spine-chilling tales of a sinister, haunted motel with 13 terrifying secrets uncovered. Claire took a deep breath as she crossed the threshold into the Sunset Vista Motel, her heart pounding in her chest. Stale air clung to her like a shroud, and the flickering lights overhead cast eerie shadows that danced mockingly on the peeling wallpaper. "This is it?" she whispered to herself, trying to stamp out the feeling of dread clawing at her insides. She could almost hear the whispers of the damned echoing from the hollow hallways, warning her, taunting her. Mark followed her inside, the tension coiling between them like a live wire. He hated this place. You could feel it, the despair of every family that passed through, broken and defeated. As he dragged their battered suitcase behind him, a strange chill slithered along his spine. This place wasn't just run down. It was something more sinister. As they fumbled to unpack in their grim, stale-smelling room, the kids, Mia and Ethan, flitted nervously around, eyes wide but curious. A loud thud made Claire jump. "What was that?" she asked, her voice trembling. She brushed it off, kissed her kids on the forehead, and went to the window. Outside, the darkness enveloped everything. "Just my imagination," she murmured. But when Mia's frightened voice broke through the silence, it sent shivers down her spine. "I saw someone out there, Mom," Mia whispered, pointing. Claire tried to reassure her, but her heart raced. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Claire's fingertips trembled on the window as she scanned the dark courtyard but saw nothing. The playground lurked at the edge of her vision, a rusted gingham beast waiting to consume her children. And when Mark's night shifts stretched endlessly, paranoia gripped their family. The motel felt more oppressive than a storm cloud, and Claire couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. Mr. Hargrove, the caretaker, popped up at the worst times with his disarming smile and those eyes that shimmered with something unearthly. She felt his gaze linger on her, sending another chill spiraling down her spine. Each interaction left her with an uneasy knot in her stomach, deepening Mark's distrust. Then came the night that shattered everything. With her back turned for a mere second, Mia and Ethan vanished into thin air after wandering to the decrepit playground. Panic surged like wildfire in her chest, and Claire's voice echoed through the empty corridors, swallowed up by the endless shadows. Each call for her children slipped away, leaving her breathless and trembling. As she sprinted toward Mr. Hargrove, his warm smile twisted into something darker. He spoke in hushed tones, offering no help but slipping between statements like a wraith. Claire's heart hammered in her ears as terror descended. Was he involved? What happened to her children? Amid the growing unease, she stumbled onto a hidden chamber behind the front desk, a darkness greater than her worst fears. Photographs lined the walls, faces of those who checked in but never left. Each twinkling I seemed to call out to her. A warning, or was it a promise? Just as her fingers brushed a photo that caught her breath, a scream, her childish scream, cut through the silence. The noise echoed, reverberating through the twisted hallways of the Sunset Vista, leaving her staring into the abyss, her heart racing as she realized the greatest danger might not be the motel itself but those trapped within. What dark secrets spun the web around her family, and could she unravel them before it was too late? Claire's heart raced as the piercing scream echoed in her ears. A primal instinct took over, propelling her forward, her feet pounding against the worn carpet like a frantic drumbeat. "Mia! Ethan!" she yelled, voice cracking, almost lost in the suffocating silence of the motel. Every corner she turned felt familiar and yet threatening, shadows stretching and writhing as if alive. Her mind swirled with dread, panic surging like a tidal wave. The photo she had touched lingered in her thoughts, faces frozen in a mixture of joy and despair. and she couldn't shake the feeling that each one held a story, a grim tale of those who had entered but never left. Time was slipping away, and in this unsettling purgatory, she might already be too late. "Mommy!" The voice rang out again, desperate and close. Claire skidded to a halt, her breath coming in sharp gasps. It sounded like it was coming from the playground. Heart in her throat, she lunged toward the back door. The cold metal handle sent another jolt of fear through her. Did she really want to open it? With one swift turn, she flung it open, and the stale air gave way to a vortex of chill. The playground stood lifeless. The rusted swings creaked without wind, and the slide loomed like a beacon in the darkness, casting menacing shadows that danced on the ground. "Mia! Ethan!" she shouted, her voice barely carrying in the thick night as her eyes adjusted to the dim light. She caught a glimpse of movement, a flash of white in the corner. Instinctively, she dashed toward it, nearly stumbling over her own feet. "Mia!" she called again, hope and fear battling fiercely within her. "Over here, Mommy!" The sweet voice sounded again, clearer now. Claire turned, heart thudding wildly. She spotted Mia, standing frozen near an old, dilapidated merry-go-round. The child's innocent eyes were now wide with terror, as if some unseen force held her in place. Claire rushed toward her, desperation propelling her legs faster. "Mia, run!" she screamed, her panic heightening as she reached her daughter. But as she grabbed Mia's trembling hand, a sudden weight pressed against her chest. There, in the shadows, she could see what had been holding the girl captive, a figure, cloaked in darkness, its outline indistinct yet undeniably menacing. "Get back inside, now!" Claire cried, dragging Mia with all her strength. With every instinct screaming to flee, Claire turned, but the moment was heavy and suspended. The figure stepped closer, its features becoming clearer. It wore what looked like a faded uniform, eyes glinting with a sinister light. "And Mr. Hargrove?" Claire stammered, the recognition hitting her like a punch. But something was wrong. His smile had faded, replaced by a grimace that twisted his face into something grotesque. "Are you looking for something, Claire?" His voice oozed like dark honey, chilling her to the bone. "I can help you find what you're looking for at a price." Claire's mind raced. Price? What could he possibly mean? From behind him, shadows shifted, whispering promises of despair. She tightened her grip on Mia's hand, feeling the cold tendrils of fear wash over her again. "Let us go. Now!" In that moment, she turned toward the motel, her feet propelling her forward faster than they ever had before. With each step, Claire could feel the weight of the figure's gaze piercing through her back. Was it just the shadows, or had they begun to move? As the door loomed ahead, bursts of laughter echoed around her. A cacophony of mocking giggles that seemed to belong to no one and everyone all at once. Just as she reached the threshold, a freezing wind whipped through the air, and she spun around, heart leaping into her throat. Mia whispered a voice, familiar yet twisted, beckoning from behind her. And just like that, the darkness behind her deepened, threatening to swallow them whole. What could possibly lie in wait as she scurried back into the motel's safety? Or a deeper level of horror? Another scream resonated from the corridors inside, piercing through the night air, prompting questions that Claire knew she had no answers to. Would she confront Mr. Hargrove again? Could she uncover the secrets bound to the motel? Or was she stepping into a trap she could never escape? The air was electric with tension. The real nightmare awaited her within, and she had no idea what would come next. As Claire barreled into the motel, the door slammed shut behind her with an ominous thud, like a final seal on their fate. Her breath came in frantic gasps, and she wheeled around to keep an eye on the darkness outside, half expecting it to rear its head once more. The interior loomed before her, shadows weaving a thick tapestry of dread. "Mia, come on." She tugged on her daughter's hand, but Mia barely budged, her eyes wide with terror, still transfixed by the doorway. "We need to find Ethan," Claire urged, her voice trembling. But where would he be? The motel felt infinite, twisting and contorting beyond reason as panic tightened around her chest. The laughter from outside faded, but another sound crept into its place, whispers, soft yet insidious, slithering through the air. Claire's pulse quickened as she strained to listen. Were those voices? Had the other guests heard? She turned down the hallway, each step crunching on grimy carpet. The overhead light flickered, casting long, jittery shadows that seemed to stretch and pull back, only to snap at her heels. "Mommy," Mia's tiny voice quavered, breaking the swirling silence. "What is it, baby?" Claire stopped in her tracks, twisting around to kneel before her daughter. I think I saw him," Mia whispered, her gaze drifting back toward the door. "Mr. Hargrove." The breath caught in Claire's throat. "He was just a man. A trickster," she reassured, desperately wishing her words could take away the fear wrapped around Mia. "He can't hurt us." "But could he?" "Mia," Claire said, "we have to find your brother. It's the only way." She urged Mia to follow her, moving deeper into the dimly lit corridor, each door lined like cells in a mausoleum. Strains of laughter, muffled and twisted, crawled beneath her skin. They reached the first door, its paint chipping and faded, and Claire felt an overpowering urge to knock. But she hesitated, her instincts howling against it. "Ethan," she called softly, pressing her ear against the door, praying for any response. Silence. She pressed her shoulder against the door and pushed, forcing it open. The room was dark, shades drawn tight, furniture draped in pale sheets like ghosts waiting for release. Claire took a cautious step inside, and the musty scent invaded her senses, clawing at her throat. "Ethan," she shouted, panic clawing at the edges of her mind. Nothing. She stepped further, scanning for any sign of movement. Then the air shifted. She felt the prickle of eyes on her. She spun around, the shadows behind her twisting as though they were alive, and a soft laugh echoed in the dim light that Claire's blood ran cold. "Who's there?" Nothing but silence answered. She crept towards the next door, heart hammering like a drum, desperate to find Ethan before it was too late. "Mama!" Mia tugged on her sleeve, her voice barely above a whisper, filled with trembling fear. "I feel cold." A chill swept through the corridor, and Claire felt her skin crawl. She turned back toward the door they had just come through, expecting to see only darkness behind it, but what she saw twisted her stomach into knots. Mr. Hargrove stood there, waiting, smiled, but this time it was not a grin. It was a predatory leer, eyes glinting with malicious intent. "Claire," he cooed, taking a slow step forward, almost gliding. "You can't run from me. You've already given me what I want." "What do you mean?" Claire's voice trembled, looking desperately at Mia's fearful face. "Your children," before he could finish. Claire grabbed Mia's hand, bolting down the hall, heart racing. But the walls shifted and closed in, almost mocking her. "Mommy!" Mia cried, her voice breaking through the rushing pulse in Claire's ears. Then that laughter returned, filling the air with a hideous energy, echoing down the hall. It came from somewhere everywhere. "Keep running," Claire shouted, willing herself not to look back as they fled. But she could feel an unseen presence tightening around them, and then, from one of the open doors, a shadow darted forth. It was a distorted figure, indistinct yet human, scrambling across the floor toward them. "Mia!" Claire screamed, pulling her daughter close. But the figure was gaining on them, its laughter mingling with the shadows, thickening around Claire like a miasma. Could they escape? Or were they already trapped in a nightmare from which there was no awakening? The hall ahead seemed to stretch endlessly, more screams echoing through the walls, sending chills cascading from her spine. With every heartbeat, she felt them getting closer, but closer to what? Terror surged around them as Claire pressed on. Would this be the end? Or had she only skimmed the surface of the horror that waited ahead? Claire's heart raced as they plunged into the depths of the corridor. Each step felt heavy, like wading through treacle. The sight of Mr. Hargrove still burned into her mind. The laughter twisted around like a noose, squeezing tighter with every breath. "Mama!" Mia begged, her grip turning desperate, small fingers clenching Claire's hand as if it were the only lifeline left. "It's okay, baby, just hold on. We'll find him," Claire whispered, but her voice cracked with each word. Andrew had to be somewhere, but where could he be hiding in this winding, suffocating labyrinth? The peal of laughter echoed again, sharper now, and Claire stumbled over a stray shoe left behind on the floor, like a forgotten promise. She shot a fleeting glance at Mia, the young girl's face etched in stark terror that made Claire want to scream. How had it come to this? "Mommy, I'm scared." The intensity of Mia's fear pierced through Claire's own fading courage. "Just keep close," she urged, tugging Mia against her side. They dashed down the hall, and at the far end, another door stood slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning them. A growl of instinct urged Claire to push forward. If it was another room, maybe they could hide. Maybe they could. "Mia," she panted, her breath coming in gasps. "Get ready to run." "Why?" Mia looked up, confusion mixing with fear. Claire didn't have time to explain. She forced the door open and thrust them inside. The room was suffocating. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light struggling through a grimy window, illuminating an old, moth-eaten carpet and once white walls now smudged with age. "Mr. Hargrove?" Mia whispered, trembling. The room held its breath, but then the whispering began again, this time softer, almost seductive. "Find what's lost, find what belongs to you, Mama. Make it stop." Mia shrieked, burying her face against Claire's shoulder. Claire's heart raced. "Mr. Hargrove is just a story, Mia. He nothing. We need to find Ethan." But as she said it, doubt crept in. Was he just a story, or had they awakened something inherently evil? "Mommy!" Mia cried again, voice raw, eyes wide, fixed on the dresser in the corner. Claire followed her gaze and felt her breath hitch. A shadow flickered behind the cracked mirror, a fleeting moment that made her skin prickle. I think he might be in there," Mia stammered, looking up with frightened determination. Claire fought back a wave of nausea. "Let us get out of here, Mia," she urged, inching toward the door when suddenly, a loud bang erupted from within the walls. The sound rattled the room like a thunderclap, drowning out all reason. "Mama!" Mia sobbed, her eyes darting around in sheer panic. "I don't want to stay here. Please." Okay. Claire turned to the door, her heart pounding. But then a voice, sweet and low like honey, licked at her ear. "Stay with us." Claire, the temperature dropped in an instant. Claire could almost see her breath puff out before her. She swallowed hard, gripping Mia tighter. "No!" Claire shouted, a primal scream erupting as she wrenched the door open, tearing them back into the hall. "Which way?" Mia whimpered, terror lacing her voice. The corridor yawned, walls bending dangerously along its zigzag path, each door to either side taunting them. "Let us go back," Mia cried. "There's worse back there," Claire snapped. "Keep moving." But as they pressed on, she felt a presence lurking just behind them, coiling like a snake ready to strike. Then, from the room they had just fled, a harsh whisper slithered through the air. "You can't escape what you've unleashed." Claire's chest tightened as dread crept back in, and she turned to Mia, their wide, terrified eyes locked in mutual despair. They had to find Ethan. They had to end this. Their breath misted in the heavy air, and then, deeper in the corridor, a familiar laugh broke through the panic. "Ethan?" Claire called out, hope flaring like a candle in an overwhelming darkness. "Mama!" A voice echoed, desperate and sorrowful. But it was no longer just a cry. It was a beckoning, an invitation to probe deeper into the unknown. "Stay close," Claire urged, pulling Mia after her, heart pounding again as they advanced toward the voice, knowing that the horrors were far from over, and that some doors should never be opened. What awaited them at the end? Could they save Ethan before the darkness consumed them all? As they moved deeper into the corridor, Claire's senses sharpened, every sound becoming magnified in the oppressive silence. The walls seemed to breathe, exhaling a stale, cold air that whispered fears Claire fought to suppress. Each footfall echoed like a drumbeat, the rhythm quickening her heartbeat. "Mama, I don't like this place," Mia whimpered, her voice a fragile whisper that seemed to draw attention from unseen entities lurking in the shadows. "Just a little farther," Claire reassured her, though her own confidence was slipping like water through her fingers. The corridor twisted like a serpent, every corner leading to more doubts and dread. As they pressed on, the laughter returned, twisted and mocking, swirling around them like a malevolent spirit. Claire felt her stomach churn. They were running out of time. "Mama, I feel sick," Mia cried, and before Claire could respond, the girl stumbled, clutching her midsection. "Can you stand?" Claire's voice trembled as she knelt beside Mia, scanning for any signs of danger. But the fear in Mia's eyes melted her resolve away. Just breathe," Claire whispered, caressing her daughter's hair, her own heart racing. A shudder coursed through Claire as the air thickened, pressure tightening around them, a predator closing in. She glanced down the hallway. Each door appeared to close in, taunting them with silence. But it was the laughter that drew her back, the impatient giggle of a child that felt all too familiar. "Mia, listen to me," Claire urged, snapping her head back towards her daughter. "We have to move. Ethan's close. We can't give up." Mia nodded, determination flickering in her eyes as she regained her footing. They continued, and something glinted at the end of the hall, a flicker of light that seemed tangible, like a beacon piercing the darkness. "Ethan?" Claire called, her voice trembling with hope. "Mama!" The cry came again, more desperate, echoing off the walls with a quiver that sent chills down Claire's spine. As they neared the light, fear coiled in Claire's gut. What if it was a trap? What if they were drawing closer to something worse? But Mia's grip on her hand was unyielding, a tether to her fragile hope. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shivered as the laughter swelled, crescendoing into a cacophony. The doors on either side rattled violently, one swinging open with a furious energy. Claire's breath hitched. "Stay behind me," she commanded, stepping protectively in front of Mia. Before they could react, a figure emerged from the doorway, a boy, his clothes tattered, hair matted. "Help me," he gasped, eyes wild with fright. "Ethan." Claire's heart soared only to plummet as she noticed something behind him, writhing, shifting in the shadows just past the threshold. "Mama!" Mia cried, pressing against Claire's leg. Ethan stumbled forward. "I can't hold it back much longer." The boy's words wrapped around Claire like a vice, paralyzing her with terror. "Get back!" A voice thundered from the darkness, echoing malevolently. Claire stumbled, feet scrambling as she pushed Mia behind her again, her mind racing. They needed to escape, but the very air crackled with danger. Shadows slithered from the door, elongating toward them like grasping hands. "Mommy!" Mia whimpered, and Claire felt the warmth of her daughter's body clinging to her leg. "Run!" Claire screamed, shock igniting her instincts. They dashed past Ethan, who stood rooted in fear, the dark entity growing just behind him. Claire felt a wave of despair as she pulled Mia away, an ache for the boy who had somehow become trapped in this nightmare. She couldn't think of him now, only escape. The corridor twisted and turned, cruel and unyielding, thrumming with the sound of their panicked breaths. As they sprinted, they heard Ethan scream, his voice fracturing under the weight of whatever haunted them. "Mama, please!" That plea echoed in Claire's head as they raced away, the shadows in pursuit, hunger growing stronger. "Mama!" Mia's voice broke through Claire's thoughts. "Where do we go?" "I don't know," Claire gasped, desperation clawing at her throat. But just ahead, an exit loomed, an inviting, blinding light offering salvation or a final trap. "Don't look back," she urged, emotions boiling as they neared the light. But the laughter crescendoed again, swirling maliciously, and Claire felt the darkness closing in. Could they plunge into the light without sealing their fates? Claire pushed ahead, breath desperate, hope mingling with dread. Whatever awaited them was lurking just beyond the threshold. But one thing was certain: they were not alone in their struggle to escape the clutches of terror. Could they really survive this descent into madness? Or was the entire nightmare just beginning? The light swallowed them whole, a blinding glare that seemed to pulse with life. Claire shielded her eyes, heart racing. As they burst through, a wave of heat wrapped around them, contrasting the chill of the corridor. They stumbled into an open room, sterile and suffocating. This place was too clean, too quiet, like a desperate attempt to hide the chaos that lingered just beyond the threshold. Mamma Mia whispered, her voice ricocheting against the sterile walls. The relief of the light faded as Claire surveyed the room, a creeping dread clawing at her throat. Where are we? Mia's eyes darted around, wide and fearful. Claire took a step forward, heart pounding. I don't know. Panic bubbled in her chest, but she forced herself to breathe. They had escaped the corridor, but what about Ethan? The silence bore down on them, thick and oppressive. Then, suddenly the laughter returned. This time, it wasn't distant memories echoing from the hallway, it was right there with them, filling the space, twisting and slithering through the air like smoke. Mama! Mia cried, clutching her mother's arm. Claire turned towards the door, which stood ajar, a shadowy silhouette dancing just outside. We have to go back. She gripped Mia's hand tighter. We can't leave Ethan. We can't just Mama. Please. Mia pulled at her, terror etched in her small face. It's not safe. The laughter pierced through Claire's thoughts, a chilling reminder of their pursuers, echoing across the walls. This way, Claire said, determination flooding her limbs even as dread filled her chest. She moved swiftly to the farthest corner, pushing through the door opposite the one they had entered. They stepped through another threshold, revealing a long hallway that seemed to stretch infinitely, illuminated only by flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry insects overhead. Stay close, Claire whispered, squeezing Mia's hand. The shadows in the corners felt alive, writhing, as if they were aware of their presence. She could sense them watching, waiting for the slightest crack in her courage. As they moved further down the hall, the laughter transformed, shifting into soft, melodic music that wrapped around them, seductive and cruel. Claire's instincts screamed at her that it was a lure, a call to danger masked in the guise of comfort. Mamma Mia's voice trembled again. Can we go back? No. Claire shot back, the denial stinging her words. We can't go back. We have to keep moving. Yet doubt clawed at her. Was she leading them into more peril? Suddenly, a door to their right burst open, and a figure appeared. It was a woman, with wild hair and eyes filled with shadows and despair. Help me, she shrieked, her voice breaking against the walls. It's coming. You have to run. Mama, Mia cried, gripping her leg, wide-eyed, frozen. Claire hesitated, torn between the stranger's plea and her instinct to protect her daughter. What's coming? She shouted, though deep down, she feared the answer. The woman's head twisted unnaturally, her face ghostly pale. They're here. You can't hide. Then she vanished back into the room, the door slamming shut with a forceful bang that echoed down the hallway. Mama, I'm scared, Mia whimpered, the panic spilling from her. Stay with me, Claire replied, her own fear igniting. She had to keep Mia safe. They couldn't let the darkness take hold. Just as they started to turn away, the flickering lights went out, plunging them into darkness. Claire's heart raced, shadows stretching around them. The music faded, replaced by the soft patter of footsteps approaching. With no escape visible, and dread clinging tightly like a noose, Claire knew they had to choose. In this unnerving silence, she looked down at her daughter, whose eyes reflected pure terror. One choice. Fight or flight, but what would happen when the shadows finally caught them? A scream echoed faintly in the distance. Then silence fell once more. Claire, the whisper lingered in the dark, unfamiliar but intimate. A new horror began to creep into her heart. What if they weren't alone after all? The darkness was no longer just absence. It was alive, breathing around them. Claire tightened her grip on Mia's hand, the small warmth of her daughter a lifeline in the chilling void. We need to move, she whispered, her voice raw and unsteady. But every step felt like a betrayal of the instinct to freeze, to hide, to wait for whatever lingered in the shadows to pass by. Look, Mia's tiny voice cut through the ominous silence, pointing ahead where the wall met the dim pool of flickering light. A distorted visage swam into view, glimmering momentarily before disappearing, leaving only a lingering sense of dread in its wake. "Mama, please, I don't want to keep your eyes on me," Claire urged, forcing her feet forward. The vibrations underfoot felt alive, as if the very floor was shifting beneath them, shaping to some dark purpose. The footsteps drew closer, steady and rhythmic, echoing off the walls like a metronome keeping time for a macabre symphony. Claire fought to steady her breath, the air thickening with each heartbeat. She could feel the shadow shifting behind them, pulsating, hungry. "Do you hear that?" Mia asked. The innocent curiosity in her voice horrified Claire. In this moment, curiosity was death. "Yes, sweetheart," Claire stammered, her heart pounding louder than the approaching footsteps. "We have to hurry." She pulled Mia along, darting down the hall, past more doors that stood closed, their silence eerie and foreboding. A pounding began in her head, a drum announcing their demise. Every door they passed could be hiding the very thing that hunted them. "Stop!" A voice boomed from behind, deep and gravelly, as strands of dread wove through Clara's thoughts. She turned, adrenaline crashing through her veins. But the hallway was empty, only flickering lights and darkness. "Run!" Mia cried, tugging at Clara's hand. It was an instinct born from sheer terror, and Claire couldn't deny it. They dashed forward, legs pumping, as the grounding silence shattered with laughter again, haunting and echoing through the corridor, chasing after them like a dark wind. Finally, they reached the end of the hall where a door stood half open, an invitation wrapped in uncertainty. Without thinking, Claire shoved it open and they stumbled inside, the door creaking like a warning. Inside, a chilling sight awaited them. The room was filled with old newspaper clippings, yellowed pages plastered over the walls, each filled with stories of missing people, bizarre occurrences, and one sliver of a headline that caught her eye. "Josh Cooper found dead in abandoned hotel, family disappears." A shudder rolled through her. What had they walked into? Claire scanned the room, her instincts telling her to get out, but curiosity kept her rooted. "Do you think Ethan is here?" she whispered, though the thought turned her stomach. "Mama," Mia whimpered, pointing to the corner. Claire followed her gaze to where a child-sized silhouette hovered, indistinct but undeniably present, drenched in shadow. The laughter morphed into sobbing, a chilling sound that turned Claire's blood cold. "Let us go," she shouted, pulling Mia back, but the weight of horror threatened to hold them there as they turned to flee. The door slamming shut behind them echoed ominously, trapping them in the narrow cell of collected despair. The smell of decay drifted through the air, mingling with the sound of muffled whispers, voices that sounded familiar yet foreign, echoing with dark intentions. "Mama, I can't breathe," Mia gasped, panic rising like bile in Claire's throat. The room contracted around them, the walls pulsing as horrors from the past clawed their way forward. Claire fought for control, yanking the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. The shadows advanced, swirling like scraps of torn fabric, forcing thoughts of escape into an abyss of despair. "Mama!" Mia screamed, her voice cutting through the noise of the shadows, pulling them closer. "Help!" Suddenly, Claire felt a pull towards the corner where the silhouette lingered, a force that called to her, wrapping around her mind. She wavered, teetering between seeking the figure and fighting against the growing pressure on her soul. She could hear the laughter again, closer this time. "Now you're here forever, run." But was it too late? The shadows were closing in, the air freezing like ice on her skin. Desperation surged through her veins as the room spun with swirling darkness, trapping them in a net of screams and whispers. And then, a voice, so familiar it sliced through the chaos. Claire helped me. A shiver ran down her spine. What if it was Ethan? What would she be willing to sacrifice to follow that voice? Time was running out. It was either embrace the dark or face the unthinkable. Claire's heart raced as the darkness pressed against her, its suffocating weight driving her thoughts into a panic. The whispering intensified, each syllable tugging at her sanity. "Help me," the voice echoed, resonating deep within her. Her instincts screamed to flee, yet her feet felt paralyzed. "Mama!" Mia's voice pulled her back, a fresh wave of horror crashing over them both. Claire turned, forcing herself to focus, to breathe. Don't look, but it was too late. The silhouette in the corner shifted, forming into something almost recognizable. Claire's breath hitched. The childlike figure began to merge with the shadows, taking on grotesque shapes, halos of dread glowing faintly in the dark. "Mama, it's so dark," Mia whispered, her eyes wide with terror. Claire swallowed hard, tears brimming as she fought to keep her daughter from succumbing to that darkness. "Stay close to me, Mia. Just hold my hand." But as she squeezed her daughter's tiny palm, Claire felt a chill flare through Mia's body, and she could see her daughter's face pale under the flickering light. "The shadows, they're saying things." "What are they saying?" Claire forced out, her own voice barely a whisper. "Something about you, about us." Mia trembled. "They want you, Mama." Mia cried again, jerking Claire from the thrall of despair. A low growl pulsed in the air, a sound full of malice. With a surge of adrenaline, she yanked on the door handle again, desperation igniting her efforts like a flame in the dark. It didn't budge. A force pushed against her, slimy and cold, coiling around her wrist. Every breath felt like it was clawed from her lungs, squeezed unrelenting by the encroaching shadows. "Mama, we can't stay here." Clara's mind buzzed with fear, and she remembered Ethan's last words before everything changed. Hadn't he warned her about this place? The warnings were buried beneath shock and grief, but now they clawed their way back, desperate to be heard, with renewed determination. Claire stepped back from the door, her eyes darting around the room, seeking another escape route. The walls seemed to pulse, almost breathing, and there by the far side of the room, a hint of reflected light shimmered from beneath a heavy frame leaning against the wall. "Come on," Claire shouted, steering Mia away from the nightmarish figure. They stumbled toward the glinting light, but it twisted, flickering like a dying star. "Mama!" Mia shrieked as the whispers grew louder, blending into a cacophony of laughter and cries. "They're coming for us." Claire guided Mia closer, feeling a sudden rush of hope wash over her. Just a little further. But as they neared, the glimmer vanished, swallowed by a deep, dark chasm protruding from the wall, a black void beckoning them to plunge into its depths. "Mama, don't," Mia begged, pulling back, their connection stretching like a thin wire about to snap. Claire hesitated. The chilling laughter erupted once more, cascading around them in a spiraling storm of torment. Something stirred within her, scratching at her mind, an ancient dread rising and rolling like fog. "Let us go," Claire cried, squeezing Mia's hand hard, trying to keep everything else at bay. In that moment, the shadows erupted, sprouting claw-like appendages towards them, fingers of darkness reaching hungrily. "Mama!" The terror in Mia's voice jolted Claire forward, her thoughts becoming a blur of instinct and fear. She pulled Mia towards the chasm, ready to leap into the unknown just before they crossed the threshold. The silhouette lunged toward them, its face morphing from that of a child to something grotesquely familiar, a face she knew. "Mama, are we lost? Run!" Claire screamed, lunging forward, leaping into the suffocating blackness. The scream echoed around them as the shadows devoured them whole. As they fell, the whispers turned into screams, all racing towards one terrifying truth buried deep in the darkness. "They're coming for you." Would they survive the plunge into that abyss? Or was it the last leap into oblivion? In that heart-stopping moment, Claire understood. The real horror had only just begun. The cold engulfed them as they plummeted, spiraling through the darkness. Claire squeezed Mia's hand tighter, a grip born of sheer terror. The void around them seemed to stretch and twist, elongating their fall into a nightmarish descent. Shadows slithered past, teasingly brushing against their faces, hissing secrets unheard. Sudden weightlessness jolted through Claire's body. They landed harshly on a damp, uneven ground. Instantly, the chilling whispers wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket. She blinked, trying to adjust her eyes to the darkness that felt alive, pulsating with malevolent energy. "Mama?" Mia's voice trembled, echoing in the stillness. It was pinned by a weight, the kind that pressed down on the soul. Claire hushed, fighting against the primal urge to scream. They landed in what seemed like a room, its walls dark and slick, drenched in shadow. A flicker of light flickered in the corner of her eye. Maybe hope still existed. A lantern hung from an unseen hook, its feeble glow revealing filthy, chipped tiles beneath them. The room was littered with broken furniture. A child's doll missing an eye, its paint chipped and faded, staring blankly into the abyss. "Mama, I want to go home," Mia said, her voice cracking like frail glass. "Me too, sweetheart," Claire replied, forcing courage through her quaking frame. They had to think, to move. Surrounded by darkness, they needed to find a way out. With each step forward, the whispers swelled. Phrases swirled around them, insisting, taunting. Claire could hear her name. "Claire, come closer. We've been waiting." She shook her head, trying to block out the haunting calls, but they pierced her resolve, slipping into her mind like the tendrils of a creeping vine. "Mia, keep your eyes on me. Don't look around." But it was hard to ignore the shadows that crept and scuttled near. Claire could see them, in the corner of her eye, shapes flickering just out of reach, whimsical, yet grotesque. The voice of a child echoing, morphing into something hollow. "Join us, who are you?" Claire shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. The shadows paused. A silence fell, heavy and thick. Then, one by one, the whispers transformed into laughter, harsh and mocking. Claire felt Mia's hand slip away, even for a moment. Panic surged through her, fierce and wild. "Mama!" Mia's voice pierced the darkness. Claire spun around, heart racing as she searched. "Mia!" The laughter grew louder, spinning around them, enveloping Claire in an ominous embrace. She spotted her daughter, just a few feet away. But Mia stood frozen, her eyes wide with sheer terror as an indistinct outline encroached upon her. "Mama!" Mia screamed again, but the outline was already upon her, its shape shifting into a mockery of familiar faces. Claire felt her heart drop. "Mia, run!" Claire howled, rushing toward the chilling form as it extended thin, claw-like fingers that reached for her daughter. The laughter surged, rising deafeningly around her, pushing Claire back. She stumbled, feeling the ground shift beneath her. The moment was slipping away, and all she could do was scream, "Mia, I'm coming!" But the shadows laughed harder, twisting the air until Claire could hardly breathe. The darkness wrapped around her, threatening to swallow her whole, until a blinding light exploded in the room like a thunderclap. "Get away from her!" A booming voice thundered, cutting through the madness. Claire shielded her eyes and felt gravity shift. As the light pulsed, the shadows recoiled, howling in pain. In that blinding moment, Claire glimpsed a figure, not just any figure, a familiar silhouette piercing the heart of the darkness. "Ethan," she murmured, disbelief washing over her. And just then, the shadows lunged toward him, desperate and hungry. Would the light hold against the terror that was closing in? The ground trembled beneath them, and as Claire clutched her daughter close, she felt the fear grow because somewhere in that chaotic dance of light and shadow lay a secret that could unravel everything they were fighting against. Who would emerge victorious in the battle of light against this consuming darkness? Would she and Mia be free, or would they be bound forever to this nightmare? Light pierced through the air like a spear, driving back the shadows that had threatened to entangle Claire and Mia. But Ethan was caught in the crossfire, his form wavering like a candle in a tempest. Claire felt raw desperation claw at her chest, threatening to choke her. She had never needed him more than in that moment. "Ethan!" she screamed, pushing forward through the flickering brightness. "We're here. We're coming." The light glowed brighter, illuminating their surroundings and pushing back the writhing darkness. But flickers of shadow still danced at the edge of her vision. Cautiously, Claire stepped closer to her son amidst the chaos. "Mom, we have to leave," Ethan shouted, his voice filled with fear. "They want us." Claire felt her heart crack. "I know, but we need to stick together. We can beat them," she called, willing the urgency of her words to reach him. As the shadows lurched toward them, she felt pressure surge around her like a vice tightening. Only with each flick of light did the laughter recede, leaving their sinister echoes in the air. "Mama!" Mia cried, her small voice quaking with fear as the shadows surged toward her. Clara's instinct kicked in. She grabbed Mia tight against her chest, protecting her like a lioness defending her cub. "Ethan!" Claire shouted, urging him closer, their connection forged in terror and love. As he moved toward them, Claire noticed the shadows jerk away from the warm pulse of light radiating from their joined hands. "Together!" Ethan shouted, stretching out his hand. Claire and Mia instinctively stepped toward him, creating a circle against the encroaching darkness. The shadows hissed, recoiling as the light grew stronger with every heartbeat. "Bring the light!" Claire yelled, her voice fierce enough to drown out the mocking laughter. As they clasped hands, their warmth shone bright, almost blinding. Light exploded from their interlocked fingers, consuming the room. The specter of shadows shrieked in fury, tearing at the fabric of the air before dissolving into smoke. "Mama!" Mia squeaked as the remaining darkness edged closer but faltered beneath their shared power. Claire squeezed her daughter's hand, feeling Mia's trust surge through them. They took a step forward together. "Stay strong!" Ethan cried, his voice steady, determination sparking in his eyes. "We can banish them." With one final surge of strength, they pushed deeper into the light, their screams merging with the sound of the cracking shadows. As the darkness crumbled, it wrapped around them, swirling and shattering. In the heart of despair, Claire swore she could feel the presence of those lost but never forgotten. Their cries for help morphed into whimpers of relief as the vast room filled with warmth and light. It enveloped them like a memory of home, the smell of fresh air, laughter suspended in time. "Keep going," Claire urged, her heart racing with hope. They pressed on, and before them stood the exit bathed in shimmering sunlight, a portal to freedom. Just through there, Ethan pointed. The shadows behind them faded, bearing ragged edges of what they had feared for so long. "Mama, I love you," Mia whispered, and in that instant, Clara's heart filled with simmering pride. "Me too, sweetheart, together forever." Claire smiled, their hands intertwined, each heartbeat echoing their resolve. They sprinted towards the light, fear and darkness chasing at their heels. And then, with one mighty leap, they dove through the threshold. They emerged into a bright world, the light of day warming their skin and chasing shadows away. Claire gasped, taking deep breaths of the crisp air, filled with scents of grass and blooming flowers, a cacophony of life stretching into the distance. "Mama!" Mia shouted, laughter spilling from her lips. Ethan soared alongside them, eyes alight with relief. Claire hugged them close, the weight of terror lifting at last. "Mommy?" Mia looked up, her brow furrowed with curiosity. "Is it really over?" "It is, baby," Claire replied, squeezing them both. "We're free now." And free they were, as they walked away from the haunted Sunset Vista Motel. A weight fell away from their hearts. Behind them, the forsaken place stood still, a graveyard of lost souls and buried secrets. Walking toward the sunlit horizon, Claire felt the love of her children envelop her, warmth chasing shadows away. Eyes ahead, they stepped across the threshold to a new beginning. But as day turned to dusk and warmth softened into twilight, a shiver rushed through Claire, a dread she knew would linger, a reminder of the darkness they had escaped but not defeated. One truth was clear. They were free, but the scars of their journey would haunt them always. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. This is the moment to face your fears, embrace what matters, and walk into the light. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help us navigate through the dark. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through your actions.